"You will come with me," the lonely herder said to the Navajo woman fleeing the land grabbers. The desert stretched endlessly under a pale sky, its sand glowing softly as the sun slowly lowered toward the horizon. A lone rider moved across the wide plain, guiding a small herd of long-horned cattle fitted with glowing tracking tags. The rider's name was Elias Crow. Most people who knew him called him the silent herder because he rarely spoke more than necessary. Elias lived far from towns and far from trouble. His ranch stood near the edge of old territory where modern technology met ancient land. Solar panels covered parts of his saddle gear, and a small drone hovered lazily behind him, watching for predators or storms. Yet despite the advanced tools, Elias preferred simple ways. He trusted his instincts more than machines. The desert wind carried faint sounds that afternoon, distant engines, sharp and unnatural. Elias paused and lifted his head. His eyes narrowed as he listened. Years of living alone had trained him to notice things others missed. Something was wrong. He turned his horse toward a ridge and climbed slowly. From the higher ground, he saw movement far below. Dust clouds rose from fast vehicles, sleek and metallic, moving in a tight formation, corporate scouts. He recognized their style immediately. The land grabbers. Elias frowned. Those people rarely came this far unless they were hunting someone or something valuable. He started to turn away, planning to lead his herd in another direction. Trouble was not something he chased anymore. But then he saw another figure, a single person running across the open desert, moving with desperate energy. The runner stumbled but forced herself up again. Long dark hair moved behind her like a banner, and traditional Navajo patterns were woven into her clothing, mixed with practical desert gear. She was heading toward the canyon path that Elias knew well. Behind her, one of the hovering vehicles lowered closer to the ground, scanning with a bright blue light. Elias watched silently for a few seconds. He could have turned away. He had done it before, ignored problems that did not belong to him. But something in the woman's movement felt different. She was not just fleeing, she was protecting something. Without thinking further, he guided his horse down the slope. The woman noticed him only when he was close. She froze, her breathing heavy, eyes sharp with fear and caution. A small device was clutched tightly in her hand. "You need to keep moving," she said quickly, glancing behind her. "They will see you." Elias stopped a short distance away. He studied her calmly, reading exhaustion in her posture and determination in her eyes. "You will come with me," he said quietly. It was not an order. It sounded more like a simple truth. She hesitated. Trust was dangerous here. Many outsiders had promised help before betraying her people, yet the man's voice carried no pressure, only certainty. "My name is Tala," she said carefully. "I cannot lead them to anyone else." "You won't," Elias replied. "If you stay alone, they catch you. If you come, you disappear." Behind them, the hum of engines grew louder. Tala made her decision quickly. She nodded once. Elias turned his horse, motioning for her to follow along a narrow path hidden between rocks. They moved fast but carefully, avoiding open ground where scanners could easily detect heat signatures. Elias activated a small device on his saddle, and the drone behind him shifted into defensive mode, releasing tiny particles that scattered their trail. For several minutes they traveled in silence. Tala's breathing slowly steadied, though tension remained in her shoulders. "Why are they chasing you?" Elias asked finally. "They want the land," she answered. "They always want the land." She explained in short sentences between breaths. A corporate syndicate had claimed ownership of wide territories after discovering rare energy crystals beneath tribal lands. Legal documents from distant cities declared the area open for development, ignoring the people who had lived there for generations. "My people refused to leave," Tala said. "They sent machines, then soldiers, now hunters." Elias listened without interrupting. "What do you carry?" he asked, nodding toward the device she held. Tala hesitated again before answering. "Proof," she said softly. "Something that shows this land belongs to us not just by history but by law older than theirs." Elias nodded once. He did not ask more. As they entered a narrow canyon, the temperature dropped slightly, and shadows stretched long across the rock walls. Elias slowed the pace and led them into a hidden alcove where water collected from underground springs. "You rest," he said. Tala leaned against the rock, closing her eyes briefly. She studied him while pretending to rest. His movements were efficient and calm. He checked the horizon constantly, scanning for danger. This was not just a simple rancher. "Why help me?" she asked quietly. Elias paused, then shrugged slightly. "Because you need help. That is not an answer. It is enough." She sensed a deeper story behind his words, but did not push further. The peaceful moment ended when Elias' drone flashed a warning signal. A red light blinked rapidly. "They found our trail," Elias said calmly. "We move again." They climbed deeper into the canyon, navigating through tight passages known only to experienced travelers. Tala struggled at times, and Elias slowed without complaint, offering steady support without making her feel weak. The sound of engines echoed faintly through the canyon walls. "They are closer," Tala said. "Yes." He stopped suddenly and released part of his herd from a secondary path. The animals moved in different directions, kicking up dust clouds. "Why?" she asked. "Confuse their sensors," Elias replied. "They track patterns, now they see many." Tala watched with growing respect. This man understood both the land and the technology chasing them. As the sun set, orange light filled the canyon, creating a peaceful beauty that contrasted sharply with the danger surrounding them. For a moment, they walked side by side in silence. "You are not afraid," Tala said finally. Elias looked ahead. "Fear keeps you alive," he said, "but it does not decide your path." Ahead, dark storm clouds gathered, lightning flickering faintly in the distance. "We head there," he said. "Into the storm?" "Yes." "Machines do not like storms." Tala almost smiled despite herself. Behind them, engines grew louder. They stepped forward together into the deepening shadows, two strangers bound by necessity, moving toward uncertain safety as the desert prepared to change everything. The wind rose, carrying sand across the sky, and the first thunder rolled as night began to fall. And for the first time since her escape began, Tala felt a small spark of hope. The storm arrived faster than expected. Dark clouds swallowed the fading sunlight, and the desert changed from warm gold to deep gray within minutes. Strong winds pushed sand through the canyon like waves across an ocean. Elias guided his horse carefully, keeping close to the rock wall where the wind was weaker. Tala followed behind him, holding tightly to her cloak as sand brushed against her face. The storm felt alive, roaring through the narrow paths as if trying to erase their presence. "Stay close," Elias said without turning. She nodded even though he could not see. Lightning flashed above the canyon rim and thunder rolled across the sky. For a moment the world became nothing but shadows and noise. But Elias moved with calm confidence. He knew the land well and he used the storm as protection. Behind them, the distant sound of engines faded. The corporate trackers depended on sensors and clear vision. The sandstorm blinded their machines. After an hour of slow travel, Elias stopped near a small cave hidden behind a curtain of rock. He guided the horse inside and motioned for Tala to follow. The cave was narrow but deep enough to shield them from the worst of the wind. "You rest," he said again. Tala lowered herself onto a flat stone, breathing heavily. Her legs trembled from exhaustion. She had been running for days before meeting Elias, and now the long journey through the canyon was catching up to her. Elias removed a small metal container from his saddle and handed her water. She drank slowly, careful not to waste a single drop. Outside, the storm continued to roar. For a while, neither of them spoke. The sound of the wind filled the silence between them. Finally, Tala looked toward him. "You move like someone trained," she said, "not just a herder." Elias focused on checking his equipment instead of answering immediately. "Everyone learns something," he said after a moment. "That is not an answer either," she replied softly. He gave a faint smile but said nothing more. Tala studied him quietly. There was sadness behind his calm eyes, something heavy that he carried alone. She decided to change the subject. "The land grabbers will not stop," she said. "Even if we escape today, they will return." Elias nodded slowly. "They always do." She held up the small device she carried. It was shaped like a smooth stone, glowing faintly with blue light. "This is why they chase me," she said. "It contains maps, old star routes hidden inside tribal designs. Our ancestors knew something about the sky that outsiders do not understand." Elias looked at the device with interest. "Star routes?" he asked. "Yes, not just stories, real navigation paths, safe ways through dangerous space. The crystals beneath our land connect to them somehow. That is why corporations want control." Elias leaned back against the cave wall, thinking. "So this is bigger than land," he said. "Yes." Silence returned again, but this time it felt different, less tense. Outside, the storm began to weaken slightly. The wind softened and the thunder moved farther away. Elias stood and walked to the cave entrance, scanning the horizon. His drone hovered beside him, projecting a faint map into the air. "They lost us for now," he said. "But not forever." Tala joined him near the entrance. She watched as the sky slowly cleared, revealing distant stars. "My people have a hidden settlement deeper in the canyon," she said. "If we reach it, they can protect the device." "We go there," Elias replied. They prepared to leave as soon as the storm weakened enough for safe travel. The air felt cooler, and the desert smelled fresh after the sandstorm. As they continued their journey, the landscape changed. Tall rock formations rose around them like ancient guardians. Narrow passages forced them to walk side by side. Tala felt more comfortable now, and curiosity replaced some of her fear. "Why live alone?" she asked suddenly. Elias took a few steps before answering. "Less noise," he said simply. "That is not the real reason." He sighed quietly. "People get hurt when you stay too long," he said. She sensed the weight behind those words but respected his silence. The calm did not last. A sharp buzzing sound echoed through the canyon. Elias froze instantly. "Down," he whispered. They moved behind a rock as a small surveillance drone flew overhead. Its red scanning light moved slowly across the ground. "They found us again," Tala said softly. Elias watched carefully, calculating. "We cannot outrun flying eyes," he said. "We confuse them instead." He activated a device on his wrist. The drone behind him released small reflective particles into the air. The particles created false heat signals, spreading in different directions. The surveillance drone paused, confused by multiple targets. After a few seconds, it turned away, following one of the false trails. Tala looked at Elias with surprise. "You know their technology very well," she said. He did not answer. They continued moving quickly, knowing they had only bought time. As night fully arrived, the sky filled with bright stars. The canyon opened into a wider valley where the path split into several directions. Tala pointed toward a narrow path hidden behind tall rocks. "This way," she said. "Almost there." Hope filled her voice, but Elias remained cautious. He sensed something wrong. The desert felt too quiet. Suddenly, lights appeared ahead, bright beams cutting through the darkness. Corporate vehicles blocked the path, hovering silently above the ground. "They predicted our route," Tala whispered. Elias studied the terrain quickly. Retreat was impossible. The canyon walls behind them were too narrow. He turned to her. "Trust me," he said calmly. She nodded without hesitation. Elias guided his herd forward suddenly, sending the animals running toward the lights. Dust rose into the air, confusing visibility. At the same time, he led Tala toward a hidden side path barely wide enough for two people. Energy pulses flashed behind them as corporate scouts attempted to stop the moving herd. The distraction worked. They escaped into darkness once again. After several minutes of fast movement, they finally reached the entrance to a hidden canyon. Faint lights glowed along the rock walls, blending with natural patterns. "We are close," Tala said with relief. Elias slowed, scanning carefully, but before they could enter fully, his drone flashed a warning. Multiple signals approached from different directions. "They know where we are," he said quietly. Tala felt her heart race. The safety she hoped for might become a battlefield. They stepped forward together into the hidden canyon, knowing that the next moment would decide everything. The wind carried distant engine sounds behind them as the night grew deeper, and danger followed close at their heels. Night covered the canyon like a quiet blanket, but the silence did not bring peace. Elias and Tala moved carefully through the narrow entrance, their footsteps echoing softly against ancient stone walls. Faint lights glowed along the rocks, shaped like small stars carved into the surface. The designs were beautiful but also practical, guiding trusted people towards safety while hiding the path from outsiders. Tala breathed deeply as she stepped forward. "We are almost safe," she said, though her voice carried both hope and worry. Elias did not relax. His eyes searched every shadow, every corner where danger could hide. His instincts told him that the corporate trackers were too close. They would not give up easily. Soon, figures appeared ahead, silent shapes emerging from the rock walls. Navajo defenders stepped into view, dressed in a mix of traditional clothing and modern protective gear. Their weapons were advanced but carried respectfully, as tools rather than symbols of aggression. One of them recognized Tala immediately. "You returned," the defender said with relief. Tala nodded and quickly explained the situation. The defenders welcomed them inside the hidden settlement, a place carved into the canyon itself. Homes blended with natural stone, solar panels shaped like woven patterns covered rooftops, and soft lights reflected against the rock walls like stars trapped inside the earth. Elias paused near the entrance, unsure if he truly belonged there. He had helped Tala reach safety, but he was still an outsider. Tala noticed his hesitation. "You saved me," she said quietly. "You are welcome here." He gave a small nod and followed her deeper into the settlement. Inside, elders gathered around a central fire. Technology and tradition existed together in harmony. Holographic displays projected ancient stories into the air while elders spoke softly about the past. Tala placed the glowing device before them. "This is the proof," she said. One of the elders activated it carefully. Light spread across the room, forming a star map filled with glowing lines and symbols. The designs looked ancient yet advanced, connecting constellations in ways Elias had never seen. "These roots are real," one elder said. "Our ancestors protected this knowledge for generations. They are not only stories," Tala added. "The corporations want exclusive control. If they take this, they control travel across dangerous space routes." Murmurs filled the room. Elias watched quietly. He began to understand the true scale of the conflict. This was not just about land, it was about power far beyond the desert. Before anyone could speak further, a warning alarm sounded throughout the settlement. A young scout ran inside. "They are here," the scout said urgently. "Corporate forces approaching from 3 sides." The room fell silent. Tala looked at Elias, fear flashing in her eyes. "They followed us," she whispered. Elias shook his head slightly. "They would have found this place eventually." The defenders began preparing quickly but calmly. Instead of panic, there was focus. Hidden panels opened, revealing defensive systems disguised as part of the environment. One elder turned to Elias. "You understand their tactics," the elder said. "Will you help us?" Elias hesitated only briefly. He had tried to leave conflict behind, but he could not walk away now. "Yes," he said. They moved toward the canyon entrance. Outside, distant lights appeared, corporate vehicles hovering like silent predators. Tala joined Elias near a control console. "You know their technology," she said quietly. "Why?" He remained silent for a long moment. "I used to work for them," he said finally. The words hung in the air between them. "I was a scout," he continued. "I mapped land before they took it. I believed I was helping build something better. I was wrong." Tala listened without judgment. "What changed?" she asked gently. Elias looked toward the approaching lights. "I saw what happened to people who trusted us," he said. "I left before I became like the rest." Tala placed a hand on his arm briefly. "You chose differently, that matters." Their moment ended as the first wave of drones entered the canyon. Red lights flashed as scanners searched for targets. The defenders activated hidden mirrors along the rock walls, reflecting signals and confusing the drones' sensors. Elias suggested redirecting energy currents through natural mineral deposits, creating false readings across the canyon. Working together, they turned the environment itself into a shield. Energy pulses flashed across the sky as drones attempted to scan deeper. The defenders moved quickly but avoided unnecessary harm, disabling machines instead of destroying them whenever possible. Tala watched Elias as he worked. His calm focus inspired confidence in those around him. The lonely herder had become something more, a protector. But the enemy adapted quickly. Larger vehicles moved closer, deploying advanced trackers resistant to environmental interference. "They are learning," Elias said. "We cannot hold them forever," a defender replied. Tala looked toward the elders who were preparing to broadcast the star map data to trusted allies across distant networks. "If we send the proof publicly, they cannot hide their illegal claims," she said. "Then we must buy time," Elias replied. He led a small group toward a narrow passage where energy lines ran beneath the canyon. Using his knowledge, he created a powerful illusion, multiple false heat signatures spreading outward like moving groups of people. Corporate forces hesitated, dividing their attention. For a moment, it seemed they might succeed. Then a sudden blast shook the canyon wall. Dust fell from above and chaos erupted. Elias turned toward the sound, but before he could react, another explosion separated him from Tala and the others. A rock slide blocked the passage between them. "Tala," he called. "I'm here," her voice answered faintly from the other side. The defenders rushed to stabilize the damaged area, but enemy forces pushed closer. Elias found himself alone on the outer edge of the canyon, facing approaching drones. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. He could retreat toward safety, but that would leave the others vulnerable. Instead, he stepped forward. He activated his drone and prepared to lead the enemy away from the settlement. Behind the rock slide, Tala felt fear rise in her chest. She knew Elias would try to protect everyone, even at great risk to himself. "No," she whispered. "You are not alone anymore." Outside, Elias moved into the open desert, drawing the enemy's attention. Lights shifted toward him as the corporate forces pursued their new target. The night filled with tension as he rode forward, using every skill he had learned to survive. And deep inside the canyon, Tala made a decision. She would not wait. She would find a way to reach him. The night was silent now, except for the distant hum of hovering vehicles retreating after the earlier chaos. Elias' heart pounded as he crouched behind a jagged rock, the cool desert air brushing against his face. The dust storm had passed, leaving only faint traces of movement across the sand. The corporate forces had pulled back temporarily, giving him a brief moment to breathe, but he knew it would not last. He checked his equipment quickly. His drone hovered nearby, projecting faint light over the canyon floor. Small, reflective particles from earlier maneuvers still floated in the air, creating false trails. It was not perfect, but it would buy time. Meanwhile, deeper in the canyon, Tala gathered herself. The narrow rock walls and dim light made her feel small, yet determination burned in her chest. She would not wait for someone else to act. Elias had risked himself to protect her and the settlement. She owed him more than safety. She activated a small communicator hidden under her cloak, sending a signal to the defenders outside the rock slide. "They need a path cleared," she whispered to herself, glancing toward the faint glow of the canyon's outer edge. "I can reach him." Without hesitation, she slipped past debris and rocks, moving as quietly as the desert wind. Her steps were precise, trained from years of navigating both land and danger. She knew the paths Elias had once described, and the faint lights of the settlement's defenses guided her like stars in the night. Elias, unaware that Tala was already moving, focused on his next steps. The corporate drones had recovered from the confusion and were scanning again. Red sensors swept across the sand like unblinking eyes. He stayed low, activating a sequence on his wrist that emitted pulses to disrupt their readings. Every move had to be exact. A single misstep would expose him. He paused for a moment, taking in the desert around him. Despite the danger, there was beauty in the quiet dunes and distant cliffs. His thoughts drifted briefly to Tala, her courage, her resilience, and the hope in her eyes when he first guided her into the canyon. It was strange to care for someone after years of isolation, yet he did. Then he heard it, a soft, rhythmic sound over the rocks, faint but unmistakable, footsteps. He tensed immediately, drawing his weapon and scanning the darkness. A shadow moved across the sand, a figure weaving through the debris. "Tala," he whispered, his voice low but filled with relief. "Yes," she called softly, moving closer. "I came for you." Elias held his ground, scanning the area as she approached. The drones were still near and the canyon floor offered little cover. He needed a plan, fast. "Follow me," he said. "Stay low." He led her toward a small crevice in the rock, hidden from plain sight. The canyon walls curved around them, offering just enough protection from the drones above. Together, they crouched behind the stone, breathing heavily but silently. "Are you hurt?" Elias asked. "I'm fine," Tala replied, "but we need to get the device to the elders before they can't protect it." He nodded. "Then we move now." Using the shadows and remaining cover, they slipped through the canyon, avoiding open ground. Elias led the way, moving with practiced ease. Tala followed closely, trusting his instincts and judgment. Every step was tense. The slightest noise could trigger the drone's sensors. As they neared the settlement, they saw activity ahead, defenders coordinating to restore systems that had been disrupted during the earlier attack. Small lights glowed across the canyon walls, signaling movement and organization. Tala felt hope rising. They were almost there. Then suddenly, a loud crash echoed from above. A hovering vehicle appeared, its searchlight sweeping across the canyon. One of the defenders fired a pulse launcher, creating a wave of light that blinded the scanner momentarily. The vehicle adjusted, but Elias and Tala moved quickly, slipping into a narrow crevice hidden behind natural rock formations. "This way," Tala whispered, guiding him through the final stretch. Finally, they emerged into the heart of the settlement. Elders and defenders were waiting, watching as the pair arrived. Relief washed over Tala as she placed the glowing device into the hands of the elders. Light spread across the canyon, illuminating the star map and revealing the hidden patterns that proved the land belonged to the tribe. Elias stepped back, finally allowing himself to relax. The immediate danger had passed. The corporate forces could not deny the evidence now, and the settlement's defenders had regained full control. One elder approached, looking at Elias with quiet gratitude. "You have done more than any of us could have hoped," he said. Elias shrugged lightly. "I just did what I could." Tala stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm. "You did more than that. You saved me and you helped protect our people. That matters more than you know." He looked at her, a faint smile appearing for the first time in a long while. "I never expected to belong anywhere," he admitted. "You do now," she replied softly. Outside, the first light of dawn began to break over the desert cliffs, casting golden hues across the canyon. The settlement stood strong, hidden yet alive, a testament to resilience and courage. Elias and Tala watched as the sunlight touched the rocks, signaling a new beginning. They knew the battle for the land was not over entirely. Corporations would return if given a chance. But for now, the desert was safe. And more importantly, the bond between them had grown stronger, forged in shared danger, trust, and determination. Elias finally spoke, breaking the quiet. "I thought I had lost hope long ago. I was wrong." Tala smiled, feeling the weight of their journey settle gently between them. "Hope is what brought you here," she said, "and now we have a future to protect together." The settlement stirred with life as defenders prepared for the day ahead. Children played quietly near stone pathways, elders taught lessons under soft sunlight, and technology and tradition continued their careful balance. Elias and Tala remained near the edge of the settlement, watching the sunrise over the desert. It was a silent moment, yet filled with meaning. For years, Elias had lived alone, avoiding connections. For years, Tala had run from danger, carrying the weight of her people's survival. Now together they had found purpose, trust, and a sense of belonging. The desert wind blew softly, carrying the scent of sand and stone. Distant cliffs glimmered with the first rays of the sun, casting long shadows over the canyon floor. The storm had passed, leaving clarity in its wake, both in the land and in their hearts. "Thank you," Tala said quietly, turning to Elias. He shook his head with a small smile. "No thanks needed. We did this together." They walked back toward the heart of the settlement, side by side. The canyon walls echoed softly as if acknowledging their journey. The desert, vast and unyielding, now held a story of courage, trust, and hope, a story that would endure far longer than any corporate claim. And as the twin moons faded in the morning sky, replaced by the warm light of dawn, Elias and Tala finally allowed themselves to believe in the future, a future where the lonely herder was no longer alone, and the Navajo woman no longer fled. Together they would face whatever came next, ready to protect the land, the secrets it held, and each other. The wind shifted gently, and for the first time in many years the desert felt quiet, not in fear but in peace.